5, 6, 7, 8, 9,
Let
10,
me get the
11.
screen share going. All right,
Is
so
that line 12 or number 12?
verse 12.
The
Verse 12.
first word in 12 and the first word in 14. I asked you this last week, I think. I never can tell if it's vayichal kale or vaikal kale.
Okay, again, it's you have to get some think about some kind of pause between the yud and the chaf. So vaychal kel, whether you say it, if you say it fast, may sound like vaychal kel, but you gotta, because it's a word, you have to get from the vai to the cha. So vaychal kel. If you're saying it slowly, you're more likely going to say vayichal kel.
Okay,
You
so
just have to get, and then the same thing, vayilakate. But when you're saying it fast, even if you're saying vayilakate, because it's a word flow, you have to go vayilakate. You still have to get from the y to the la. So it's not vayilakate, but vayilakate. You're thinking the y, you're thinking the pause.
okay.
Whereas
That,
going from a lamed to a kaf, vayechal kel, you've got the lamed pronounced ooh, and you don't have to go vayechal kel, just vayechal kel.
And will you say again when it's kol and when it's kal? I mean, aside
Okay,
from
so it's kol only if it's the combination like this, and it were the little T shape, the kamats, and it was the word as the root word of the prefixes and suffixes.
Wait, this
So this one's not
oh,
kol because it's the wrong vowel,
Yeah.
as
Yeah.
well as the word is actually kalkel, is actually not kol all or every, but
Yeah.
kalkel, which is its own word.
And in the line below?
But here, for example, kol bait, it
Oh, that
is
was kol. Okay.
because it's the right vowel, it's the right combination, and remember the apostrophe just combines two separate words. It's not actually a word.
Right.
So the root's not kalaba or something like that.
Right. Yeah. That one I got.
Okay, so verse 11. Vayoshev Yosef et Aviv ve'echav vayiten lahem achuzah be'eretz Mitzrayim b'meitav haaretz be'eretz Ramses ka'asher tziva Pharaoh. So Vayoshev comes from the root yashav, to sit or dwell, and here it's he settled, he dwelled, he caused to dwell. So best English translation would be he settled.
Mm-hmm.
And Yosef is the one settling. Yosef settled et Aviv, his father, ve'echav, and his brothers. So he caused them to dwell. He brought them to their new. He rented a U-Haul chariot and brought them to their new dwelling. And vayiten lahem achuzah, interesting way of saying he gives them actually an inheritance. So he gives them their own title.
So what is achuzah?
Achuzah is an inheritance.
Oh, inheritance.
It's a title.
But when they say like 100%, like mea achuz, isn't that the same word?
Yes. Yeah, that's a full inheritance.
Oh, okay. Oh, so that's how they get the
100 inheritances.
Where
Yes.
is give?
Yes. Achuz.
Vayitain, and he gave. Vayitain lahem. He gave them title. So he gave them a deed for the land.
Oh.
Be'eretz Mitzrayim. He gave them a deed in the land of Egypt. B'meitav haaretz, in the best of the land, the
Oh,
goodest of the land, in the goodness of the land.
mm-hmm,
Again, the root is tov.
yeah.
So it was in Be'eretz Ramses, which of course is going to be an interesting statement because when we get to Exodus, remember they built, we're told, the cities of Ramses and Pitom.
Mm-hmm.
So this is an area that's identifying for the later listener where in the Egyptian Delta region Israel was settled during this time of Joseph.
Mm.
And he did it, kasher tziva Pharaoh, because Pharaoh commanded it. He did as that Pharaoh commanded.
In XXIII, they said it's an anachronism to call it Ramses when it's really Goshen.
Of course. I mean, because everything else in the story calls it Goshen.
So Goshen and Ramses is the same.
Well, so what we're being told is the area of Goshen eventually will get built up as a city, Ramses,
Oh, I see now.
Mm.
which they themselves will build the city in Goshen in Exodus.
Wow.
Which is commanded?
Tziva. So Ka'asher, as that commanded Pharaoh. Then 12.
Rabbi Sam,
Yes.
Vayoshev, what makes it, and it was like settled instead of like saying, Yosef, dwelled.
That would be Vayeshev. The O tells us it's a different form of the verb.
Oh,
Oh.
It's a
oh.
it's a causative passive.
Hmm.
But
What
is,
would it have been if it were like, how would you say Joseph settled?
Vayeshev Yosef.
wait, but I thought you said it's the same. The Yoshev,
Vayoshev
yeah.
versus Vayeshev.
But you said this word meant settled or dwelled.
Well,
Mhm.
he's settling his brothers as opposed to settling himself.
I see. And what about if he said he sat down?
Vayeshev. Sitting down and dwelling are the same thing. Giving you the mitzvah of Leshev Basukah,
Mhm.
whether it means to sit in the sukkah and simply sip some wine, or to dwell in the sukkah and have a sleepover.
So is that a transitive verb?
Yes, it's got a direct object, the brother,
Yeah, okay.
the father and the brothers.
Yeah, that's what I thought.
But Vayeshev Yosef would be Yosef is the one dwelling.
Right,
Mhm.
got it.
And in Navea Hafta, what form is used there? And you shall dwell in your house.
When you sit in your house,
Yeah, when you sit in your house.
B'shivtecha, in your sitting or in your dwelling.
Okay, different form. Okay.
Well, it's in the sittingness of, or the dwellingness of.
Okay, thanks.
All right, so 12. Vayechalkel Yosef et Aviv, ve'et Echav, ve'et kol beit Aviv, lechem lefi hataf. Now notice 11, we don't have the beit Aviv, the house of his father.
Mhm.
They are not given, the deed is not in their name. The deed is in the name of his father and his brothers, but the rest of the people involved in this entourage of people, this house of his father, at least they get to eat. I guess they're squatters. I don't know if they pay rent to the leaseholders or not. But the first word, vayechalkel, chalkala is income.
Oh. Oh.
When we make our prayers for chalkala, we're asking for sustenance.
Mm-hmm.
So he sustained, he nourished. So Yosef is doing the sustaining, and his father, Aviv, and his brothers, Echav, and all of the house of his father, called Beit Aviv, they're all given sustenance. They're all given nourishment of lechem.
Bread.
They get bread, which of course is the staff of life or the symbolic statement of all kinds of food.
Mm-hmm.
And then lefi hataf literally is according to the young'uns, according to the babies.
What does that mean? Who are the babies? Who are the young ones?
So he doles out the bread, and most translations will translate it as family.
Mm-hmm.
But the family unit is defined by how many little ones, young'uns, there are.
Oh,
Huh.
So each gets the appropriate amount of bread for their family unit.
mm.
So they get bread based on the babies.
And what is Lefi Hataf?
That's
is-
according to the young'un.
So Hataf is
A
I guess
tough,
is
yes.
family unit?
Well,
Top what-
it's indicative of a family unit.
Oh, but
It's
it
not
means
mishpacha, it's not
No.
family, it's young'un.
young ones. Oh, interesting. I
And
didn't know they had a word for that. Now,
Lefi is not peh.
now I do,
Lefi is according to,
according to.
but literally it's to the mouth of.
Oh,
Oh,
How do you say mouth?
Mouth, peh,
Ah, pe?
a pay. The
Hmm.
letter pay is a mouth. Of course, that's
like
what it
what?
is. Here's the mouth, here's the nose. 13. V'lechem ein b'chol haaretz ki chaved hara'av ma'od.
mm,
Vatela eretz Mitzrayim ve'eretz Canaan mipnei hara'av. So lechem ein, bread ain't. There is not. Yesh, there is. Ein, there is not. So that's where we get the English word ain't. We get it from ein.
That's true.
Sure.
So lechem ein b'chol haaretz. Bread ain't in all the land. There is no bread in all the land, except by Joseph. Ki chaved hara'av ma'od. For heavy is the famine very. Ki chaved, for kaved, heavy or severe. Hara'av, the famine, ma'od. And it's actually kaved ma'od, very heavy.
mhm.
But the very and the heavy are split by the actual subject of the heaviness,
But,
the ra'av.
but is it true that there's no bread or that there's no production of wheat? Because he put away all the bread for the Egyptians, right? Or
Well,
the Egyptians,
again, bread here is symbolic of all food,
right?
all sustaining. So there's no bread because there's no wheat because there's a very heavy famine, a drought.
But there's no wheat growing, but I thought he put away, he was responsible for stockpiling from the good years.
Exactly.
we
So
still have bread.
therefore, there's nothing left in all the rest of the land.
In the land, but in the stockroom, yes. In the
In the,
stock,
yes, in the silos and the stockpiles,
Ah,
but in the land there is not.
I see, yeah, very literal.
And what's Vatela?
So vatela, and
Yeah.
they're all fainting.
Oh. Vatela.
And it fainted. That's Eretz Mitzrayim fainted. The land itself was fainting, was
Arched, maybe.
falling down from starvation, from lack of sustenance. And not just Eretz Mitzrayim, but Eretz Canaan as well.
Mm-hmm.
So the land is faint with hunger, all of Egypt and all of the land of Canaan.
Yifnei.
Mipnei hara'av, mipnei literally from before, from the face of, from in front of, hara'av.
Mm.
So because of the famine, there is nothing in all of Egypt and all of Canaan. There is no sustenance, no bread. Nothing's growing. It's more than a famine, it's a drought. So therefore nothing's growing, not the wheat and not the grasses for the flocks. So apparently he also stored up a whole bunch of hay. So vayelaket Yosef et kol hakesef hanimsa ve'eretz Mitzrayim uve'eretz Canaan bashever asher hem shovrim vayave Yosef et hakesef beta Pharaoh. 14's a biggie.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
So vayelaket Yosef, Joseph is gathering in.
Oh.
Vayelaket is he gathered in. He's gathering in at kol hakesef, all the silver. Hanimsa, that is found. Literally, ha is found. Matzah found. Nimsa was found. So he took in all the silver that could be found. The Eretz Mitzrayim, uve Eretz Canaan. He took in all the silver that could be found in the land of Egypt and in the land of Canaan. So now they're fainting from hunger and he's pauperizing them. He's gathering in all their money.
Mm-hmm.
But not for himself.
Well, he's gathering it bashever asher hem shovrim. So remember, shever is the grain exchange. It's the Cairo Stock Exchange. So on the buying and selling, the grain exchange, that they are exchanging, asher hem shovrim, that they are grain exchanging.
Oh, Shovrim is exchanging?
Well, it's the
Bartering or?
grain that you buy and sell. It's
Right.
the barter system.
Yeah.
But is
So
it,
he's trading grain for silver.
what is Beshevet? How would you,
So
is
he
it exchange?
takes in all the silver in exchange for grain.
Mm-hmm.
So shever is both the exchange and the thing that's being exchanged.
There's no food stamps.
Right. Can't eat food stamps. So no credit.
But who has grain?
He does. He has the grain, they have the silver.
Who's they?
Oh.
But who is
They,
they?
as all of Egypt and all of Canaan, have silver, can't eat it. Now, if they had
They
gold,
didn't
you
put it
could eat
away.
Yeah, if you have gold, you could eat it, but it wouldn't be nutritionally valuable.
So only the wealthy get to eat?
Everybody had silver. They had silver bowls, silver goblets, silverware.
Hmm.
And yes, who knows what, but it would seem that this is saying that everybody has some amount of silver. And The price is of grain is how much can you afford?
Mm.
It's not 4 pieces of silver per family grain unit. So a family comes and says, here's all the silver I have. And Joseph says, okay, here's all the grain you need.
Mm.
That's what we all need, just a benevolent leader.
Yeah,
Forget democracy.
everybody gets what they need, and all they have to do is give up everything they have.
There's a name for that, isn't there? To each according to his need.
That's right. And from each according to his ability.
Mhm.
This whole section that we're reading now for the next couple of weeks is the biblical, the Torah-itic explanation of a Egyptian feudal system that they blame the Torah author either blames or credits Joseph with.
Hmm.
So he gathers in all the silver and he gives out all the grain that they need. So he exchanges silver for grain. And Bashever Asher Hem Shovrim is that statement of grain exchange.
What's
So
the
it's
hem at the end of Asher?
Asher Hem, that they Shovrim,
Oh, so that
that they are grain exchanging.
Mhm.
Vayave Yosef et HaKesef, and then he brought, Vayave, caused to come. He brought all the silver, the Kesef, Beta Pharaoh, into the house of Pharaoh. So Pharaoh now is going to already owns all the food supply. And now Pharaoh will own all of the medium of exchange supply. Brings it into Fort Knox, Mitzrayim. 15, Vayitom HaKesef me Eretz Mitzrayim, ume Eretz Canaan, Vayavo'u Chol Mitzrayim El Yosef Lemor, Hava Lanu Lechem Lama Namut Negdecha Ki Afes Kasef. I love that. You really know you're at the end of a statement when you get to Afes Kasef. So now they have no grain and they have no silver. Their silver supply is gone. Vayitom HaKesef.
Who's there?
Vayitom is
All the Egyptian people, or
Yes,
the
it's all ended. May Eretz Mitzrayim u'mei Eretz Canaan. All of the silver now is in the land of Egypt. May Eretz from the land of Egypt, u'mei Eretz Canaan, and from the land of Canaan. All of it has been brought to, it ended up in the control of Yosef.
So Vayitom is what?
So the translation that I use here, you always look over here, is spent.
oh
But they finished out. They used up all of the supply of silver that they had, all of it from the land of Egypt and from the land of Canaan was all spent, was all gone, was all diminished to nothingness.
wow.
Vayavo'u, so they brought, called Mitzrayim, all of Egypt, they brought Yosef to Yosef. So they came. So all of Egypt now comes to Joseph. So he must have had a very large receiving chamber.
Resume.
Yeah, they all came. They lined up in queue for a days long as they paraded in before Joseph. So they all come to Joseph. Lemor, and they're saying, Hava lanu lechem. And Hava is an introduction into like, let us. Hava nagila, let us be joyous. Hava lanu lechem, let to us bread.
And what's lanu?
To us.
Us.
So let there be to us lechem, bread. V'lama namut negdecha, for why will we die in front of you? Neged, in opposition, or opposed to, or opposite, or in front of. We're standing here begging for bread, and if you don't give it to us, why we're going to die. So why will we die in front of you? We need bread. We have nothing to buy it with. Key, because afes kasef. SF is
Zero.
FS is the word for zero or nothing.
Oh, FS, yeah.
So no, there is nothing kasef. There is zero silver. FS kasef, zero silver, afes kasef, and it has a nice ring to it. Afes kasef.
Which is opposite is
Neged. Neged is some kind of relational situation where two people are standing facing each other, opposite each other. It might be in opposition of, or it might be in partnering, but you're standing in a opposing pair.
Opposing pair.
So here we are opposite you. We're standing opposite you. Chava was created neged, eser keneged, and a helpmate opposite Adam.
Mm.
So it's not necessarily a conflict, but it's a physical situation where you're not standing next to each other, you're standing opposite each other, face to face.
Face to face.
Because our silver has been zeroed out. Vayomer Yosef, so Joseph says, Havu miknechem ve'etna lachem b'miknechem im afes kasef. So Joseph responds to them and says, okay, Havu miknechem, let your cattle. In other words, you can't exchange silver because you don't have any, so exchange your cattle for bread. Even stranger than the thought that everybody had money was that everybody had cattle.
But weren't the cattle like emaciated because there was no grain?
Only in the
There was a
dream.
drought, surely the cattle were in bad shape
What
too.
did you say?
The cattle were only emaciated in the dream.
Ah,
But but if the land was parched, how could the cattle survive?
Yeah.
because it was a miracle.
they were very scrawny.
Yeah. Well, again, it's the question of if the cattle herding is an abomination to Egyptians, and therefore all the cattle are out in Goshen on the other side of the delta, what is it that these people are supposed to be bringing in place of the silver that they no longer have to exchange for the bread?
But did Joseph's family have bread all this time, even though the rest of Egypt didn't?
Well, we don't have anything about what Joseph is giving to the Goshenites. Right now, we're getting an Egyptian barter system. And we know that the family would not have gotten it if they had stayed in Canaan, because Canaan is also diminished their silver to 0.
But this really isn't very nice, is
No,
it?
no.
It's total speculation in a time of need.
Yep.
And it's Joseph doing it, or is he doing it with the Pharaoh? Is Pharaoh commanding it?
Give it to
Well,
Pharaoh.
Pharaoh gave Joseph the power to do whatever he wanted as far as the food because of his interpretation. So is Joseph doing it? We know that only know of one commandment by Pharaoh, and that was that the brothers would be settled in Ramses. We're never told again. We're told that Joseph brings it to Pharaoh, but we're never told, well, whether Pharaoh received the plan and approved it, or Joseph actually created the plan and simply brought Pharaoh the proceeds from the plan so that Pharaoh could have plausible deniability in anything of what was going on to the pauperizing of Egypt and Canaan.
Wow.
So now we know why the Jews were enslaved. Right? It's retribution.
Well, actually,
Yes.
Exodus gives us a different reason.
Seems to me now we know why there's been bad blood between the two groups.
Yes, we know that the Jews are brought in, not just here in the Torah, the Jews are brought in to handle the money. And then when people complain about the way the money is handled, the Jews are blamed for handling the money.
Well, maybe with good cause.
And that was true in Poland many times, in England many times. Every time the Jews got kicked out, it was because they were blamed for all of the ills of the people. And everybody time they were brought back in was because the nobles needed money.
Yeah.
Or help.
But here, yes, the question is, what is the Torah telling us? And this is the answer, of course, is what would you like it to tell you? But what is the Torah telling us about Joseph's role in this, about Joseph doing it on his own right, or being seen as the Ivrit who is doing it, the Hebrew who is doing it? Right now, we're just getting a straightforward story with no judgment. And the question is, they bring their cattle to Joseph. Joseph certainly can't bring the cattle and stick them in a warehouse or a bank vault like he did with the silver. So what's Joseph doing with all these beasts, these animals? So are they giving him the cattle, or are they giving him the deed to the cattle? And for some of that answer, you have to wait till next week.
Could you translate the last few?
Yes, so therefore Joseph says to them, let your cattle, havu miknechem, let your cattle, without saying, let me take your cattle, let me take the deeds to your cattle. But somehow we're now going to no longer exchange grain for silver. We're going to exchange grain for cattle or cattle ownership. Ve'etna, and I will give lachem to you, b'miknechem, in the exchange for your cattle. So I'll give you the bread now using our exchange medium as cattle deeds or cattle ownership, whatever. And I'll do it im asef, if truly you have zeroed out your kesef, your silver. Im afes kasef. I'll now exchange the exchange medium from silver to cattle or cattle deeds if you are really afes kasef, if you are really zeroed out in silver. So he's taking all the silver, and that would seem to be literally.
And
He's taking the cattle, and we're not quite sure if this is cattle or cattle deeds. So that's the Egyptian, beginning of the Egyptian feudal system that was created according to the Torah story by Joseph in response to a famine crisis, a drought crisis. Is Joseph war profiteering, famine profiteering for Pharaoh? Or is Joseph teaching better food management by taking over the system, which they clearly didn't manage well, because in good years they would have eaten more than they needed and used it all up, and he
Mhm.
prevented them from doing that.
Wow.
So our interpretation, our explanation for all of this then has to be whatever we want to do with it. Credit Joseph, blame Joseph, or simply report that it was Joseph's idea to create the system that was known in Egypt at the time of the author. And is the author saying that was really a smart system because it kept people from going broke and dying during bad times?
Wow.
It also
So
kept them from fighting over who had more.
exactly. So, you know, what is the biblical author doing by telling us this story that Joseph did? Is the biblical author envious of the Egyptian system and wished Israel would be a little more like it in his time?
But in the end, they wind up slaves.
Well, not for this reason.
Oh,
Interestingly enough, little bit of spoiler alert, the Egyptians end up as avadim, as servants.
ah,
This system creates Egyptian servitude.
ah.
Exodus gives us Hebrew servitude in a different way and for a different reason.
Mhm.
And yes, we are not told what's happening to Joseph's brothers out in Goshen while this is all going on. We're told that north of them in Canaan, it's happening, and west of them in Egypt, it's happening. But we're not told what's happening to them in the middle. They're apparently doing fine.
Mhm.
Because not only are they, as we will find out, not only are they thriving, but they're multiplying like Hebrews in Egypt, which is probably a better metaphor than like rabbits.
You're laughing at us.
So,
So
How
next
many-
week,
24.
next week, 24, 47, 17 to 21.
Will you read slowly?
Yes,
Slowly,
just
Rick?
5 verses. There's a lot of, notice these verses get rather long. So a lot of meat in these 5 verses.
long sentences.
Vayaviu et miknehem el Yosef, vayiten lahem Yosef lechem, basusim uvamikne hatzon, uvamikne habakar, uvachamorim, vayanachalem balechem bechol miknehem bashana hahi. So we get all the different kinds of animals that are getting exchanged. And again, we don't really know if this is literally exchange of animals or exchange of ownership. Vatitom hashana hahi, vayavo'u elav bashana hashenit, vayomru lo nichached me adoni, ki im tam hakesef umikne habehema el Adoni Lo nishar lifnei Adoni, bilti im geviatenu, va'admatenu. 19. Lama namut. They keep saying, Lama, why? Why are we going to die? Lama namut le'enecha, gam anachnu, gam admatenu, k'nei otanu, ve'et admatenu, balechem, balachem. V'nihiyeh anachnu va'admatenu avadim lefar'o. V'ten zera v'nichyeh v'lo namut ha'adama lo tesham. 20. Vayiken Yosef et kol admat Mitzrayim lefar'o, ki machru Mitzrayim ish sadehu, ki chazak alehem hara'av, v'tehi ha'aretz lefar'o. 21. Ve'et ha'am ha'evir oto la'arim miksei gevul Mitzrayim va'ad katsehu. And so now in this one, it's only Mitzrayim. It's no longer Canaan, and again, no mention of Goshen. This is all going on to the Egyptians and to Egypt.
Hmm.